now. Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Hi, Beverly.
Yeah, hi. Welcome to Saturday, almost afternoon, pretty soon. I'm Dr. Beverly Browning. I'm the author of Grant Writing for Dummies and a bunch of other books. I live here in the Phoenix metro area in Goodyear, and I've been here since 1995. Today, we're going to talk about grant writing for food bank needs. So I wanted this session to really be customized for you, and it talks about the factors that are most successful in looking for grants as well as grant writing. So I'm going to give you some free and subscription-based options today for grant research databases. I'm also going to show you how to use a Boolean operator to fine-tune your keyword strings when you're looking through Google trying to find grants, because that's also a pretty cheap and productive way. And then we'll look at what goes into a typical grant application and what funders expect to see. So this is related to the handout that Lily and her team printed out for you, and it is your food bank grant ready? So just think about this. Do you have dedicated grant-seeking staff or volunteer? Remember, if your budget's really tight and you can't afford to have like a quarter-time, half-time, full-time grant writer, you can always train a volunteer or have a volunteer attend training to learn how to write grants. Somebody needs to do it that can do it on a regular basis. For instance, they're working on something every month to send out. Asking a volunteer to produce a proposal a week is a lot when they're a volunteer, and it's a lot of work, but it can be done. But for that volunteer that doesn't have a lot of extra time, then it could be a retired teacher, a retired college professor, a social worker, anybody in the community that's been doing technical writing and understands reading instructions and writing to the letter to get all the information in. They can do it, and it can happen from a volunteer level, not necessarily someone you have to bring on staff. If a lot of you are executive directors, managing your food bank from the top level, then definitely getting a volunteer to do this will take a little bit of your workload off when it comes to looking for funding. How often should you be looking for grant funding? Literally every month. Even if you feel like your budget's stable and it's never going to be cut, there's always going to be more of a demand than there is an actual supply. And if something happens to your supply line, then you definitely need to have some grant funding so you can go out and purchase staples, get what you need in order to have that, food bank distribution in your region. Also, think about your grant funding research capabilities. Where are you looking for grants? How are you looking? Are you waiting for someone to send you an email and say, hey, I found this grant, we might, be able to apply for it. You have to aggressively look for grant funding. Don't just wait for somebody to drop an idea into your email or into your ear at a board meeting or in passing by. You have to look on your own, because there's so much out there that you can look for funding that no one may know about if they don't subscribe to the right databases, if they're not using the right keyword searches. Do you have your organizational documents ready? So if you were to call, let's say, somebody in your community who is either a volunteer or a grant writing consultant that's going to charge you a fee, the typical documents that they would ask you for: a copy of your strategic plan, your mission, your vision, your value statement, a copy of your Form 990 IRS tax return that you file annually, a copy of the annual report that you put together to give to your board, information on the people that you distribute your food commodities to, by zip code, by community, by census tract, also demographics, ethnicity, age range, number of families, number of households. All of that information is critical to being able to even start the research and to have the right keywords. Do you have evidence of your own capability and your knowledge of the target population? So if I asked you at the last distribution, how many people were there? What ethnicity did they represent? What percent were female? What percent were male? What percent were families with children? What percent were elderly people over the age of 65? And don't be offended if you're over 65 and I put you in that elderly category. I'm 73, I'll be 73 this year, just in a couple of months. And yes, I feel elderly when I wake up. So I kind of like putting that up there, over 65. Also, does your food bank have the financial capability to manage grant awards? You can't just get the money and then never collect data, never show how you achieved the objectives that were in your grant application, never collect receipts for everything that was spent. You have to be able to manage a grant award. And the larger the grant, the more difficult process on your end to collect data and report back findings, both financial and programmatic outcomes, to the funders that gave you the funding. And how are you capturing your evaluation data? Is it by observation? Is it by having people fill out survey forms? Is it by having somebody at the door with a clip chart or a clipboard indicating we have to check off this information because part of our services are provided in part by grant funding, and we just need to collect this. You won't be identified, but there are just a few things I have to ask and check off. That's a good way to collect data, especially if people happen to be homeless, don't have an address, can't tell you their zip code. Then just say, you know, are you living in a residence, or do you consider yourself without shelter, without, you know, an apartment or a home or transitional housing or congregate housing or something like that. But you have to be able to get answers in order to be responsive to your funders. So I can't see you, but you can raise your hands and Lily can tell me. Raise your hand if your food bank is grant ready right now, and Lily will give me a count.
Two.
Two.
Yeah, two. One, well, one of them is an iffy, didn't, you know, wave the hand, but one's solid.
Okay, and of the two, how many total people are participating in this training that are there today?
Five. Six, well, seven.
7 plus the folks that are online on their own laptops, right?
No, we're watching you on the big screen.
Oh, okay, great. So that means that some of you have to focus on getting grant ready before you can look for funding.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't have 2 years financial history behind us. We're a new startup. So we're having
I don't have 2 years financial history either. I just live here, literally. Yes, I know it's rough out there. So I wanted to show you some free web sources that you can use to do grant research. I put federal grants up here, even though I don't think any of the smaller food banks are ready to go after federal, but anything is possible when you try. It's grants.gov. This is where you get all of the announcements from the 26 federal grant-making agencies that come down. You're going to want to subscribe by agency to USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. And also, if your food bank is located on a Native American or American Indian reservation, or you have a service population that is predominantly Native American, you also want to subscribe to anything coming from BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. You'll also see some opportunities in there, okay? And then another one is a newsletter that comes into your email inbox every Friday, and it's called Philanthropy News Digest, and it's a request for proposal newsletter. And any foundation or corporate grant maker that is looking to fund in a specific area, because you can subscribe by category, you're able to actually go in and fine tune what you get in your News Digest reports on Friday. It comes Friday morning, I believe. So I have mine set up to search for food insecurity, because I'm working with a nonprofit on the Yakima Nation in Washington State, and they provide food distributions. And with that, I'm searching for food insecurity, individuals in need, rural food deserts, because if people are food insecure, that means there's no place nearby where they can get quality food or purchase fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm looking at all of those key search words and putting them in order to find grant funding opportunities for that client. So this is another free service, and it's called Funds Net Services. Lily has a copy of the PowerPoint link that she's going to be able to send you if you haven't already received it. And everything that's in my PowerPoint is clickable. You'll also get a copy of the Zoom recording when it's ready. I'll send it to Lily first. And you're going to hear Kat and I talking up front. I'm not going to edit because I don't want to edit out the wrong stuff. So you're just going to get the unedited video. But these are the different categories. So if I were looking for dollars for a food bank, first I would look under children, youth, and family, because they're the predominant people that are at the food bank. I would also look under community foundations to see what community foundations serve my county in Arizona. I would also look under health, wellness, not so much for research, but for health and wellness, because food and nutrition is a major part of health and wellness, and being able to eat a balanced meal and get food in our systems. Let's see. I would also look at community and economic development, because you're doing community development by providing this service. There's also a link for fundraising resources, grant writing resources. Hunger and homeless obviously would be the first site that you would look under. Regional grants, grants that fund within your region of the state. I would also look there as well. This is another free grant research website. It's called Grant Gopher. It's the light version. If you want to look at more than 5 grant opportunities monthly, you actually have to subscribe. But this has grant funding opportunities for nonprofits as well as schools and municipalities. And you can actually look at 5 you can search, put a keyword in, and then choose 5 of those that you actually want to study more, download them, or do a Control-P on your computer and print to PDF and then save it to a digital cloud folder so you can look at the specifics later, and also look for the funder's website to get more information. And I'm going to have a half an hour of Q&A or question and answer when we're over. So don't fret if you don't get to ask a question when you see something on a slide. You'll get to see it, and we'll get to talk later. If there is something throughout the state of Arizona, excuse me, and they're called funding information networks. This is a clickable map. And if you get on the PowerPoint when you get your copy and just click over the US, it'll come up and you can search by state and then scroll down, click Arizona, and it will show you everywhere in Arizona where a large public library or a university library or a major foundation has a subscription to the Funding Information Network. At the library, it's going to be in the resource department. So you want to ask the resource librarian to help you log on and access it. They have a bulk license user, kind of a network agreement with the Foundation Directory Online. So you have access to over 100,000 potential funders. There are many foundations outside the state of Arizona that will fund in the state of Arizona, either because board trustees on the foundation graduated from school here, lived here when they were a child, were born here, come here for winter homes, like winter visitors. For whatever reasons, they want to give back to a community that they fell in love with, even though they may not live here. So don't just think your funding's here in Arizona. It's also outside of Arizona. Now we're going to get into the subscription-based grant research databases. And this is a part of the Funding Information Network, but it's online, and it's called the Candid Foundation Directory Online. It has over 224,000 expanded grantmaker profiles. It is quite steep per month. It depends on however you decide to pay, by the month or annually. But you could also get a grant just to subscribe. Did you know that? It's called a capacity building request. With capacity building, you can bring in a fundraiser, consulting fundraiser to help you plan a fundraising campaign to raise money for a new building, an expansion of the building you're in, new refrigerated vehicles if you need to transport any food items, anything like that. It's called a capacity building request. Also, there is another level of subscription here called Essential. You can see that it only has 107,000. What are you going to miss in Essential? All of the corporate grant makers. You're not going to pick up any of the corporate. Why is that important? Because if you have a branch of a large-scale bank within a 50-mile radius, or the bank that your food bank actually does business with, writes checks from, puts deposits in, that bank could be connected to the parent bank. And the parent banks all give grant money, and they all have sponsorship funds. And if you go to, for instance, Wells Fargo, they have a sponsorship request or a grant request. And for sponsorship, you click on the region you're in, which is going to be Southwest, and there's just a 1 or 2 page form to fill out. So if you're going to have a fundraising event and you're going to do something in the community to raise dollars to help do something at the food bank, you could ask for sponsorship funding from the banks. And they need a 6-week minimum notice about the event and the date. And then if they want to fund in your area, you could easily get $1,000, $2,500, $3,000 towards your event. So those are things to look at. This is the subscription part of Grant Gopher Pro. It is, they have one at $9 a month. And then they have the Success Path, which is much more, at $49 a month. There's also Grant Station. If you're a member of the Arizona Alliance of Nonprofits, then you know that you get Grant Station as a part of your benefit with them. And if you pay for it outside of the Arizona Alliance of Nonprofits, then you're likely going to have to pay the full year subscription without the partner discounts. This is the one that I've been using this year, and I use it all the time. It's called Instrumental, and no, there's no A between the T and the L. It's spelled correctly. It's clickable. It's grants for nonprofits. You have access to foundation, corporate, federal, and state grants all in one place. Even if your county puts out a CDBG application that you can apply for as a nonprofit, it will be in there. Arizona is fully covered. You do have a 14-day free trial. After that, I think it's $82 a month. It can be canceled any time. And you can not only search for grants, but you can also do your grant management in there and tracking and enter in dollars and things like that. It eliminates for me, because I'm looking for money every day, either for the Arizona statewide, I want to tell you about that. It's a sidebar. Local First Arizona is based here in Phoenix, but they have regional offices all over the state and people who work at those offices to help with information. They also have a foundation called the Local First Arizona Foundation. Their primary audience is small businesses, but since COVID started, they focused on getting the needed information and resources out to nonprofit organizations as well throughout the state. Our company, my company, Grant Writing Training Foundation, we work with Local First Arizona Foundation to do a statewide sweep of grants available in Arizona for all kinds of operational areas, expansion, loans, grants, everything for businesses, nonprofits, units of government, and individuals. It is free for you if you go to, I think it's called the Arizona Economic Recovery Center, Arizona Economic Recovery Center. But first, look for the local First Arizona Foundation's website, then you'll see that. Our grants are updated every Monday. There's typically at least 20 to 25 new entries for Arizona nonprofits to apply for. That's another way, if you're tight on subscription dollars, to use this for free and take advantage of it. I don't know how much longer it will be funded, but I'm willing to say likely after the first of the year. We started working with them in April of this year to put this together. It may have been towards the end of last year, actually, to put this together. But it is statewide. It includes funders in the state and out of the state. But if you want your own subscription, then take a look at Instrumental. If you click on the link above, you get $50 off your first month's subscription. So how do we search when we're using Google? Because a lot of times when I'm looking for funding and I feel like I've exhausted everything that I know to use, I go to Google and I just start typing in keywords. So these are called Boolean operators. The plus sign, the word and, the word or, not, parentheses, or quotation marks, and it tightens up the search. It brings in exactly what you're looking for and not a lot of random, useless returns. Here's the example. I want to know what funders fund on the Navajo Nation. So I type in foundation grant awarded plus Navajo Nation plus Arizona because the nation covers more than one state, plus 2020 because most funders haven't even listed publicly who they funded in 2021 yet. So they're like a year behind on getting that to public level. Next is South Tucson, foundation grant awards or grants. So I want to know about the awards that have been given or grants that are available right now, plus South Tucson, plus Arizona, and 2020, another way to do a Boolean search. Next is Sierra Vista, foundation or corporate grants, because there's a lot of businesses located there because of the military presence. So foundation or corporate grants, plus Sierra Vista, plus Arizona, plus not national funders. I'm looking for businesses, foundations, anybody that's located in a driving proximity of where people in Sierra Vista would go for large-scale purchases, because that's the circle on the map where I'm going to look for potential funders. So how far would they drive to go and get a washer and dryer? How far would they drive to get a car? Would they go all the way to Tucson? Would they be so far as to venture all the way over to New Mexico? I'm looking for where the buying market is willing to go. And I'm going to Google all of that ahead of time to figure out how far to look for funders for a smaller area that's not considered urban. The next one is Yuma, and I'm using the quotation marks, foundations, awarding grants, plus Yuma, plus Arizona, and 2020. This tightens it up because when I'm doing a search, I have all of about 2 hours to identify 10 to 15 potential funders for a client. So I can't be on here 80 hours over the course of 2 weeks. I want to tighten it up. I want to only get back the stuff that I'm really looking for. Those of you that are, I'm going to go back a minute. Those of you that are in smaller areas throughout the state, I believe I did some research. Oh, I don't see it right now. I did some research on CAT's community and found out that it was on Arizona Route 61. So that would be considered rural or remote. You're going to think about where you would drive to get something major. Would you go to Show Low? What big scale businesses are represented there or have subsidiaries there? Would you drive so far? Would you come down and go to Globe or Miami or Superior? Would you come into the valley and go to Apache Junction? Where would you go? Those are the kind of things you're going to put in there based on how far you would drive to look for something that you couldn't find in your local area. Okay, let me get back over here. Here we go, looking for the right information. Once you think you have that perfect funder, it's a great match, ask yourself these questions. What do they fund? Where do they fund? What types of grants are awarded? General operating, seed money, capital infrastructure, conferences, capacity building, technical assistance, building funds. Some even fund building funds to help you expand or change your site from where you're located. And then you want to know, what is their grant making history in Arizona, in my county, in Apache County, and think about it, in Yavapai County, and what's their region? What have they done there? Have they spent money there already? Because any money that crosses the state line for any other grant recipient called a grantee will come across the state line again if it's outside the state and come to your region. You just have to make the connection by doing your research. Also on the funder's website, are they accepting letters of inquiry called LOIs or grant applications? Do they even have a website and grant application guidelines? Sometimes family foundations, which usually have a lot of money, don't even have a website. It's about who they know. So it means, who do you know? Who do the people on your board know? How can you look at that foundation without a website, but their name popped up when you did the Boolean search on Google, but there's no website to track them? Well, you could go to guidestar.org, GUIDESTAR, guidestar.org, and you could type in the name of the family foundation that popped up. That's pretty elusive. And if they're registered with the Internal Revenue, their information will pop up. And what do you want to see? Their Form 990. That's their IRS tax return. Why do you want to see that? Because all the names of their board members, their officers, and their addresses are listed there. In addition, if they had a bank trustee or a CPA prepare their Form 990, that person's name is on there. It's like looking for needles in a haystack to pick up clues on how to get to the family members that make the decisions to fund. How can you introduce yourself? What back door do you have to squeeze through? By talking to the CPA, by saying, oh, look, these are their board members. Let me go to LinkedIn and see if they have profiles. And if so, I can connect with them. I can do an in-message and introduce my food bank and ask if I could have a few minutes of their time to talk about the possibility of getting support from the family foundation that they represent, that they sit on the board for. And if you think that's just a little bit too much detective-like, you're right. There's a lot of money out there when we dig deep, when we look for elusive information that other people can't find. That's where the money's at. Not everything is mainstream, upfront, and on a grant research database. Sometimes we just run across something randomly, or an article in a newspaper that mentions a family that gave a grant to someone to improve their campground, and it's within 50 miles of where we are. Who is this family? Why did they give to the campground? Do they have roots to Arizona? Did they go to school here? And if any member of the family is on LinkedIn.com and you have a profile too, because that's where you post your wish list, I'm going to say this again. You need a profile on LinkedIn.com. Whoever's in charge of the money, and I would say the executive director, you need a profile on LinkedIn. And then you need to look to connect to people that have connections to Arizona and are also part of a business or a foundation, major corporation, a bank, whatever, because that's where the money's at. Not all money is right above the surface where we can find it. We have to connect, because if you're connected to enough people and you put up your wish list for the food bank, guess what? Everybody that you're connected to will want to step up and do something to click off an item on your wish list. I did this with a group in Arizona, in the Phoenix area, a daycare center, and I put their entire wish list up, and they had a link to, I think it was Amazon, where you could click through, be right on their wish list website and choose what you wanted to donate, and then go ahead and go through with the purchase. Within 2 weeks of posting 43 items on that wish list, that came to, I think it wasn't a whole lot. I'm going to say for them, because they had a large budget, but also a drain on the expenses, I would say their wish list came to around $20,000. Everything was crossed off. Everything was purchased. Boxes just started arriving in their lobby when the Amazon truck would drive up. They literally got everything they needed by just creating the wish list. So keep that in mind. Also, what's the contact person for the foundation? What's their grant making range? If their grant making range says we fund grants averaging $2,000 to $25,000, if you're a first-time grant seeker, first-time grant applicant, you don't go barreling in asking for the top of the range. You ask for the bottom of the range because you have to get your foot in the door. They have to get to know you. They have to trust you, know that you're going to spend the money wisely. Then the next time they have an open grant cycle, you can go back and ask for more. And then the third time, more. And before you know it, in 4 to 5 years, you're right at the cap and you're getting $25,000, $35,000 a year from them.
Looks like it froze up.
So they've had a large range, but you finally reach that range. When are their deadlines? When do you have to submit letters of inquiry? When do you have to submit grant applications? Don't do things that are due the same day. You need time to write, to think, to do research, to get someone to edit it, and then to look at it one more time before you upload or hit submit. I like to see you submitting 3 to 5 days before the actual deadline. In the event there's a glitch in the software, the upload doesn't happen, or the funder's not located in our time zone. The funder's located on the East Coast, and we forgot that. And it said that all requests had to be submitted through their portal by 3 o'clock Eastern, and we just read over that. And so at 2:45 Arizona time, we're frantically trying to submit, and we don't understand why the system won't take our application. It's because we didn't pay attention to detail, we forgot about the time zone change, or it wasn't even in our mind. Introduction. Before you put both hands out asking for something, you have to build a relationship with that funder first. And that can be done by Zoom, by Google Meet, by Skype, by a phone call, by an email. Doesn't matter, as long as you reach out first to introduce yourself and your organization and why you're writing to them, why you're calling them, why you're asking for a Google Meet time to see them face to face. So, the best way to get the foot in the door, because no funder funds strangers. They only fund people that they're familiar with. Telephone call, an email, face to face. What are you wanting to be invited to do? Invited to submit a letter of inquiry, which is we're inquiring about your interest in our organization to apply for funding. This is who we are, this is when we were founded, this is what we do, this is who we serve, this is where we're located, this is a list of our board of directors. Okay? You could be invited to submit a grant proposal or application, depending on how they term it. But if you just do a cold submission where, oh, well, I found this funder on the internet and it looks like they fund food banks, so I'm going to sit down and write this grant proposal. It's going to result in an automatic form letter, form email rejection. Relationship building is the only way to go today. You have to have a relationship. You have to work hard at building it before you can ask for money. You can't just submit and think that it's going to come to you. In dire circumstances, you might get lucky, but on the day-to-day, no. So when you start writing your funding request or proposal or application, this is what funders expect to see. They want a comprehensive writing that comes from you. Your statement of need, why do you need this money, needs to be justified. Your request needs to be reasonable, not over the top and asking for way too much money. You need to have documented evidence that you actually have a need. Okay, where's the evaluation data? Where's your numbers? Where's the census tract numbers? Where's the point in time count from the homeless count that shows the increase from one year to the next of homeless individuals in your region or community that come to you for food staples and other kinds of emergency personal protective equipment supplies? Is the request appropriate? In other words, your budget has a reserve. You've got 100,000 in reserves that you've been carrying over every year for 5 years, but you're going to a foundation to ask for 5,000. You're looking at that like, why aren't you using your own money? Is it detail filled? Did you give a lot of details? Hopefully you didn't write, we need additional funding to serve the people that we cannot serve at our food bank. To you, that sounds compassionate, compelling. When I'm like, oh, I feel heartbreaking, because you do. But to the funder, it's words and without evidence. Yesterday, we had to turn away 15 people because we ran out of supplements. It's the same story every day. Even though we're cutting down on the amount of items we put into our distribution bags or boxes, we still don't have enough. The car lines keep getting longer. People standing in line in the hot sun. There's nothing we can do. We don't even have extra bottles of water to distribute. Things like that is compelling, but give numbers, give numbers. Make sure you're thorough in giving the information about your target population, people in need. Be complete, be specific, be unique. What do you do that's not being done by every other food bank within a 100-mile radius? Are you doing something different? Make sure you are giving a full story. It's extensive, evidence-based, demographics, 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 plus data. Is it innovative, where you started giving out, especially in the winter months, and you're in the northern part of the state, when they come to get their food distribution? Have you also been able to get a grant to give out those, I think they're like coats or winter jackets that also turn into sleeping bags, so that they're getting something different besides just food? That's innovative, because you were donated 250 of those to give out. Is your proposal sound? You're going to increase the number that you serve by 1,000%. Okay, that's not sound. Percentages don't go over 100%. Are you qualified to manage a grant? Do you understand the reporting process? Do you have a strong history of being a service provider in your community? Do you have letters of commitment from your partners indicating how critically needed your food bank and its services are, because you're rural, because you're remote, or because you're urban and you're just inundated with the number of growing homeless people who are sent out to this area on a bus with a one-way ticket from other states, who are trying to say that they've reduced their homeless by serving them when they really haven't. They put them on a bus and sent them here. And the other place they send them is on an airplane to Hawaii. That might sound grandiose and luxurious, but it's not. Okay? Ability driven. Do you have ideas to help solve the chronic homelessness and food desert issues in your community? Are you a part of a local consortium or collaborative that is working on getting higher distribution levels into the community? Is your request need-based? Is it feasible what you propose to do? And lots of demographics to support it. Funders will reject your requests if they fit any of these descriptors: partial, unjustified, unreasonable, undocumented, inappropriate, too broad. They're asking for $5,000 and they're going to serve 500 additional people for the whole year. Is that really logistically going to happen? Too broad or too limited. We're asking for $25,000 to increase our services by 10 people per week. Okay. Too much. Careless. Did you have mistakes in your proposal? Did you spell check it? Did you apply Grammarly free, Grammarly free. It's a part of the subscription-based Grammarly Pro, but Grammarly Free checks for sentence structure, punctuation. Grammarly Pro, on the other side, actually rewrites full sentences and gives you recommendations for how to make something clear. I use Grammarly Pro because I have to write applications that get funded, not that get rejected. But there is a free version out there. I looked at it this week. I sent it to my students that I teach online, and they're using it to put on their papers before they even turn them into me because they had so many mistakes in their writing. Is it complete? Did you tell the whole story? It's too common. Every food bank's asking for this. I wish we could have had something different. Or is it too narrow? Is it lacking evidence? Is it unsound? Is it unqualified? No one has experience in managing grants. They're all new because the last team, everybody quit. The executive director found a new job, the volunteers left with the executive director to go somewhere else. All those things are known. All they have to do is Google the name of your food bank and look at the local newspapers that pop up that have talked about it, that have had things in it. Is it concealing? You're not telling that the last executive director left because they embezzled money from the food bank checkbook. Is it too vague? Is it impossible? You're proposing something that is literally impossible, or it's undemonstrated. You haven't looked for other examples out there that have worked and then say that you're adopting your approach based on this food bank, which has been successful in doing this to serve more people. Or is it unspecific? So these are the sections of a grant application. This first section is called boilerplate, and it's something you can write ahead of time and just keep using it over and over and copy and paste, and you should have it ready to go. It will save you when you're writing a grant application and you're on deadline and they ask about your organizational history, capability, list of current programs, number of volunteers, and the hours that they give annually. If you have this already written, you're just copying and pasting it into every type of application that you fill out. It makes life easier. Did you know that your volunteers are valued at $26.94 an hour? This is the Arizona rate for volunteers. It will change again in 2022. And it comes from a website. This is a clickable link. It is called the independent sector, and it has a section there called the value of a volunteer hour. So if you are writing grants and you're just putting your volunteers in and their value at minimum wage value because, well, somebody dropped out of high school, somebody else has difficulty writing a full sentence, but they're great in handing out food distribution. Everybody, regardless of their professional ability, educational ability, age, what they have or don't have, everybody gets calculated at $26.94 an hour when you are calculating volunteers. So why would you even calculate this? Because they are in kind, they're soft cash. So your hand is out asking for a $15,000 grant, but in this hand, it's closed. Why? Because this is where you have your in-kind. This is your match against the cash you're requesting. You're showing that you have some assets internally that are called soft money or in-kind to leverage the grant money coming in to make your program more successful. Statement of need. Okay, the big four words are at the bottom, and you can't embellish. You have to tell the truth. Gloom, doom, drama, and trauma. When you focus on your target population, and you do focus on them, not the needs of your staff, the needs of your food bank, you focus on the people you serve. They're the end recipients. Why are they there? Because bad things have happened to them along the road of life. They may have lost their home. They may have lost their family. They may have had multiple deaths in their family as a resultant of the pandemic. They may not even be from this state. They were able to hitchhike and get here, and they have no one as a support team that they know. They're living on the streets or under alleys or wherever, under bridges and alleys. Okay, that's gloom, doom, drama, and trauma. That's why they're at the food bank. Technically, they wouldn't be there if they had a middle to upper income salary and didn't have to support a family of 10, okay? So Never ask for money in the statement of need. It is obvious if you are writing a grant application, proposal or application, you must need money. Don't ever write the statement, we need money. They know it when they see your application for funding. They know it when they see a copy of your general operating budget, which is a standard mandatory attachment. So we never talk money. We talk about not having the resources in place. And it's okay to say, the Kayenta Food Bank is rural and remote and isolated from most mainstream resources. Okay. Our community could be classified as a food desert because many of the members of the tribes that are represented in Cayena, not just the Navajo tribe, but the Hopi tribe, and I think there's another, okay, do not have transportation to drive 25 miles to the nearest Fry's or Bash's or whatever. That just reeks gloom, doom, drama, and trauma, that a family without transportation would have to find a way to get 25 miles to buy food with money that they don't have to buy food with. So all of this, whatever you write about, it needs to take the reader, the decision maker for the funding, into this deep, dark, oh my goodness, we have to help these people whole. That's literally what we call it. Validate, justify, based on your census, your public health records, mental health records, whatever you can find, number of people receiving state benefits, number of elderly people on fixed incomes, typically Social Security. We have to do that homework and put all this together, because if somebody's getting a Social Security check of $600 a month and their rent's $250, which isn't likely in this day, we know that, then what's left after medical copays in case they need specialized medicine that aren't covered in the formulary? What food are they going to be able to buy? And is it going to last for 30 days, 30 to 31 days? Not likely. Tell the story. Do a storytelling case study about a couple of recipients that you know are in a bad way. And if it wasn't for the food bank, they would die of starvation. This case shouldn't be less than 4 to 6 paragraphs. And remember, don't ask for money. Don't write about the solutions. If we had a grant, we could. Not here. We want the reader to be desolate, inconsolable, all the rest. They're ready to write the check, okay? But not until they find out the plan. Here's the plan. First, we have our goals. We have our SMART objectives. We have our implementation strategies, partnership table, work plan table, and logic model. And I'm going to show you these. So a goal statement starts out with a verb. If you're in doubt, look it up in your dictionary. It's a one sentence, not a paragraph, specific purpose or outcome of the grant monies. It's the beginning of your promise to the grant maker, literally. Goals should not include numbers, percentages, any types of measurements. You do have to put in the geographic location and the target audience. You've got to let them know who's going to benefit from their funding and where are they going to be. These are good words to start out goals with. Provide, design, implement, enable, plan, evaluate, construct, empower, educate, sustain. We wouldn't start a goal out with feed hungry people. Okay, that's not a goal. Provide food staples and month-long nutritional supplements for underserved, economically deprived families in what county? In Grant County. Okay, I'll go with Grant County. So all of those things matter, how we word it, how we say it. The first place to look for a goal statement, because remember, you're writing to a funder that has a priority. that already has goals for their grant funding. So we look at their website and their guidelines. What do they say their priorities are? What's the goal for the funding? That's how we align our goals. The more we align with the potential grant maker, the more they want to give us the grant because it looks friendly, reader friendly. It resonates within their heart. It resonates within their mind. All these things matter. Here's an example of a goal statement. Provide services to families and individuals in the Southwest Valley who are hungry, in need, or facing a crisis. This goal statement can only be used for funders that are in the state of Arizona. If we do it outside, let's say it goes to Nevada, they may not know what we're talking about in the Southwest Valley, or in the northeastern part of the state, or in the central desert, or in the high desert. So we have to then now put Arizona in our county. So all of those things matter. So a goal is action focused, non-measurable, futuristic, something that's going to happen because we have the money to make it happen. Geographic directed, where, Southwest Valley, county, Arizona. And we identified our target population, families and individuals who are hungry and in need or facing a crisis. Now we're going to talk about a SMART objective because every goal has to have measurable objectives that go with it. SMART means specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed, or also I like to use time-bound. Here's a SMART objective formula that you can use to plug into. Funders expect to see something like this in their grant request coming from you. By the end of year one, let's just have a time frame. Oh, I think it skipped ahead. Yep. By the end of year one, I want to go back one more there. By the end of year one, decrease the number of individuals having to turn to the food bank for weekly distribution by 25% or more, as demonstrated by the newly formed Human Service Network partnership that will reach out and find ways for the unemployed to become employed, for the uneducated to become educated, and for the unfed to have a way to earn funding through stipends or salaries in order to bring food supplements into their household. So I know that's long, but it is a big picture that tells the funder, wow, they've got a plan. This is what they're going to do. They're forming a human services network that stretches across 3 counties. And they're going to bring together all of these agencies, the grants they already have, the funding they already have, the resources, the people they already have. And they're going to come up with a way to alleviate what they're experiencing right now. And that is an increase in the need for food to be provided by your food bank. So lots of thoughts go into here. So here's what it looks like. By the end of the grant funding cycle, increase the number of Southwest Valley families and individuals receiving food supplements, pandemic supplies, and referrals for housing assistance by 25% or more, as demonstrated by 2020 baseline service demographic comparisons and 2021 distribution and referral records. So an objective is much longer than a goal, but it is an accountable objective. And the as demonstrated by language sets you up for the evaluation plan, how you're going to evaluate that you made this happen by 25% or more. You're going to look at baseline demographics from your last year's service numbers. You're going to compare them to this year's demographics for distribution and referral. So here's the writing format. First, we have our goal. Then we have our objectives, and it's okay for a goal to have 2, 3, 4, 5 objectives. It's okay to have multiple goals with multiple objectives. But now we have, how are we going to make this happen? Well, the implementation strategy is to identify and approach additional funding partners. So secure additional funding. Still not asking for money. You're just saying you're going to secure additional funding. Increase the inventory of distribution items. Enlist, screen, and train additional volunteers. Develop and distribute public service announcements to local news outlets, units of government, senior citizens housing complexes, and other community human service partners, and begin tracking outgoing resources, service levels, and total volunteer hours during the grant funding cycle. These are all things that you have to do, and they're all called strategies. Implementation strategies are the same as we got the check. What are the activities or tasks that we have to carry out in order to live up to the goal and achieve the objective? Everybody needs a partner. You can't go forward without partners. You can't do this alone. So who's your partner? Who do you work with? Who do you depend on? Who do you do information and referral with? They refer to you, you refer to them. Where are they located? How long have you been a partner with this organization? Years of affiliation. And what do they do to help your agency or your project? What do they provide? Information, volunteer referral, staff on loans, use of vehicles, use of facility. They give you the overage from food on the shelf that would expire if they didn't get it to another food bank to give out because they've already finished their distribution for the week and these perishable goods are left over. Examples of partners: other nonprofit organizations, municipalities, human services, social services, local and state agencies, faith-based churches, current and previous funders, they're partners too, associations, service clubs, organizations, block groups. And of course, if you're small and you use a fiscal agent, like working through your community foundation or through Technical Assistance Project Arizona, TAP-AC, then they're also considered a partner. There are two types of partners. Supportive partners don't count anymore. They only write letters of support. Yes, we support the ABC Food Bank and they're applying for this funding. They really need it. Okay, that carries no weight, waste of paper, waste of time. You want letters of commitment. And whoever's going to type them needs to type letter of commitment at the top. Why? Because they're committing either money or in-kind contributions toward your food bank's request for funding. Letters of commitment, not letters of support. Funders want a work plan. They want to know what you're going to do each quarter when they give you the grant funding. This is a high-level look at the big steps. One, your board needs to vote to accept and acknowledge the grant award. That happens right away in the first quarter. Responsible party, board of directors. You may have some planning to do before you can implement. Then after you implement, you have to do monitoring and evaluation. Who are your stakeholders? The people you serve, your board members, the community at large, the Arizona Food Bank Network. They're all your stakeholders, and you want them to know that you got this grant, that everything's going well, that you exceeded your expectations, and you're excited to share this news with everybody else in the network. That's called stakeholder reporting. Then we come to the fourth quarter when it's time to close out our project and share our findings, disseminate our findings at a statewide conference, at a quarterly meeting, at some association that you belong to, where you go to their meetings, they're having a presentation, and you talk about the success your food bank has had, even though it may be located in a rural, remote location. So all of these things go in the work plan, but at a high level. We don't want to put our little bitty tasks in there. This is a logic model. This one happens to be 6 columns. The columns are not connected by individual rows. These are open columns when you create them. So you just really need 3 rows. The header row, the row where all the information goes, like all resources needed, and then the final row that becomes a merged row to type your impact statement. Look back after 5 years. It's about all the resources you have already, external and internal. Strategies, your activities. This is what you're going to do when you get the money. Outputs, everything starts with a number, and you don't have to put in a real number. I just use a pound sign. Number of people served, number of people referred to other agencies, number of people turned away, number of pounds of food distributed on a monthly basis, number of new food supply partners added to our network, number of new volunteers being trained to help us on distribution time, all of that. And then what's going to happen in 3 months? What will you have changed? Well, you will have done something with the funders' money. At 6 months, you should have spent half the money and you should have a lot of evaluation data ready to share. At the end, because typical funding is 12 months long, you've got to talk about the changes that have occurred. Increased proficiency in planning larger distribution events. Increased awareness. Everything's always past tense in your long-term outcomes, and you're projecting what's going to have happened after the end of 12 months, because this is a part of your grant application. Increased awareness among community partners of our needs and the types of donations that are acceptable. All those things are the long-term. Been out there, you've been marketing, publicizing, you're ready to go, people are giving you more things. Now, 5 years, the impact statement. You left where you are now. You left that food bank. You came down here to St. Mary's because you wanted to have experience with a larger food bank. You go back to the community 5 years later and you visit the food bank because it was just like a home, a family to you. What do you see? And it has to be something really grandiose. Unemployed, underserved, and income limited individuals and families residing in, we'll just name someplace, let's just say Quartzsite. Residing in Quartzsite, Arizona, are no longer repeat visitors to the food bank. Faces are new. Families come with different needs, and eventually they too will be given everything they need to be self-sustaining or to live self-sustaining lives, period. And I have to close my eyes when I write these impact statements for real applications because I have to wait for the dream language to come to me. It's like, okay, I'm not there, I left. 5 years later, what do I see? What am I blown away with when I see this? And how do I communicate it to the funder? That's your impact statement. These are resource links so you can learn more about the logic model. The William K. Kellogg Foundation, the maker of Kellogg Cornflakes, Kellogg Corporation gives their profits to the foundation, and they're one of the largest in the world. They have this huge book on how to create your logic model. How do we wrap this up? A management plan, evaluation plan, sustainability statement, project budget, and then mandatory attachments. This is a management plan. It could be a table or a narrative. Who's in charge? What's their full-time equivalent? What do they do? And what are their qualifications? We can even use a volunteer, like a lead volunteer coordinator or supervisor in here. They can also be in here. The evaluation, funders want to know who's going to conduct it. Will you look at the quality of your food bank distributions? Will you look at the quantity? Will you be able to report monthly, or are you going to wait till the end, and it's called summative, report at the end, summatively? What type of data will be collected? They want to know because you said so in the program design that you were going to collect data. It was right at the end of your SMART objectives, as demonstrated by. That's the data you have to collect. What do you need to demonstrate? Show baseline versus where you are now. And how are you going to address red flags? The grant that you thought would last a year ran out in 4 months. Yes, you have to talk about it in your evaluation plan. The possibility of underestimating the real need in the community and what the corrective action plan is to keep serving and to keep using that funder's money to the best of your ability by leveraging it to get new or additional grant funds. And then how you're going to share this information with all of your stakeholders, all of the people that support you. Every funder wants to know, when our grant's over, how are you going to keep doing what you do if we don't give you any more money? Guess whose role this falls on? Your governing board, the board of directors. Their role is to create a sustainability plan so that you can use a piece of that and copy and paste it into your grant applications. A sustainability plan means how do we keep the doors open when we have a pandemic, when we have a crisis, when we have an earthquake, because we do have a fault running through some of the upper levels of the state. So with all of that, we need a sustainability plan. How do we keep doing what we do when we have a national emergency or a weather emergency or something else? Budgets, when you get to your budget, just a reminder, you have to include your program budget with a detailed line item narrative. You have to explain every dollar you're asking for. Please calculate correctly. You have to be able to follow the guidelines. Sometimes funders will say, round up your budget to the nearest dollar. And if you put in odd cents anyway, you won't get funded, because it means if you can't follow directions, you can't be accountable for spending their money. And then don't forget to include your in-kind and cash matches, all that information. Typical attachments, a copy of your IRS 501c3 letter, your program budget, your current operating budget, and a roster of governing board members. All right, we are ready for questions and answers, and I will take those.
Whoa.
Still trying to absorb what you just gave us.
That's a lot of
It's like
information.
his digest.
And remember, step close to a microphone so I can hear you too.
Will your presentation deck be available to us?
Yes.
That's a lot of information.
I believe, Lily, didn't I send you a copy of the PowerPoint handout already with resource files to send out? Yep.
All right.
Okay. So you already have that, yes.
Well, what about your presentation deck? Can it be sent to us?
The PowerPoint,
Well,
yes, you're getting a copy of the PowerPoint file, and you're also getting a link. I'm going to send it to Lily today. As soon as Zoom sends me the link to the recording, I'm going to send that out for her to distribute it to you. So you'll have the recording as well, and, you know, all of the talking and all of it.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very, very informative, and we thoroughly enjoyed your presentation.
You know, I do have one question also about finding the grants availability. I have noticed in all of the publications and corporate donations that are being made that the big buzzword now is racial equality, inclusion. Yet we are in small little communities, and obviously we are feeding all sorts of people, but we don't really have a way, or we personally don't have a way of going out and campaigning to include other people, if that
Okay, you
makes
don't have
sense.
to campaign in order to do that. All your board needs to do is to create a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, meaning that no one will be turned away from distribution services, regardless of gender identification, race, what is it? Oh, there's like a religious
Race,
background.
sex, creed, or color. Yeah.
Yes, that's all you have to do, and there's tons of examples online.
Yeah, we found that on posting on our website page, it said that anyone that is hungry can apply, regardless.
Right.
And
We
that
do
don't-
have a diversity statement, so you're saying that that would be a good thing to include in the grant
Yes.
proposal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great. All righty.
And don't forget to include the handicapping condition part of it too. Make sure your language is like the full statement that includes every possible group type of population that might likely end up there. Even if you never see them, you still have to include it in your statement to say that it's inclusive.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that key
Thank
word
you.
inclusive it goes hand in hand with diversity.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, and that would cover the inclusion part, or where there weren't,
Yeah.
how are you going to develop a plan to be more inclusive or to
Absolutely. It says you're
show
gonna train
racial
your
equality?
volunteers. So let's say somebody comes for food, to pick up food, and they're dirty, their clothes are tattered, they smell, their teeth are all crooked, they likely haven't had a toothbrush in 5 years.
But that's fine.
Their hair's all
Yeah, that's our
over.
client. That's our client.
Okay, you don't want the volunteer to step back, okay?
Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
do like this, cover their nose if they don't have their mask on. So it's about training your volunteers to greet everyone the same way. And even if they just want to go rush and get the Lysol and start spraying, that they have a smile on their face and that they're treating everyone equally and the same.
Ah, okay.
Oh, yeah, we've run across a couple instances of that, and we do have a wonderful staff, and they kindly just smile and say, how's everything going? And then after they're done, they're like, I'm going to the bathroom, I gotta go outside.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
it's
I
just
never
about
thought of it
having
that
that-
way, but obviously
Yeah,
you
you
do.
just need that statement to put into your grant application when they ask you for it. And indicate
We
that
also have-
it's created by the board
we al-
and adopted.
We also have that in our volunteer manual, and so we can actually cite that even our volunteers are required to go through civil rights training and then sign a confidentiality agreement and a non-discriminatory statement.
Yeah, we do.
So we can include that as a part of our ensuring.
And what you don't put in writing, but you have to train them to be prepared for, if you have a volunteer of a different ethnicity than the person coming to the door, and the person calls that person by a derogatory name, which would be extremely offensive and insulting, that the volunteer still keeps the smile on their face, because words don't matter, words don't hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, it
So I have a
hurts our
question.
feelings, but they don't hurt us physically.
I have a question that's unrelated. Sites to look for grants for startups. Our situation has been the fact that we have had our 501c3 for barely a year. We have no history, we have our very first 990, and places, there are a lot of places that you have to have a longer history, a longer established in the community before you can even apply for a grant. And so, is there places for startups?
Where are you located?
Yeah, Yucca, Arizona.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yucca, Arizona, it's south of Kingman on the
South
40.
of Kingwood?
Yeah.
What's the
25 miles
county?
south of King.
What's the name of your county?
Mojave.
Mojave County?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm gonna do another screen share. I need to put in my meeting ID, it's up here, AOZCKP. I'm gonna show you how I would do a Google search for that.
Cool.
It's coming up now. Can you see my Google
Yeah.
screen? Okay, I wanna do a
Yeah.
couple of searches.
Okay.
There's the first one. So somewhere in the county, there's a Bank of America. They have a huge corporate giving and a foundation program, and all you have to do is talk to the bank manager first to ask them to connect you with somebody at corporate or foundation giving level that would be willing to help your food bank get on its feet and get started.
Okay.
You'll see Grant Gopher, that website I showed you earlier.
Yeah.
Look at this, they've got it by county in Arizona.
Oh, cool.
The BHH Legacy Fund, which is based here in the Valley, They support that area. They're huge. They have a ton of money.
Okay, very good. PHH, okay.
Have you talked to anybody at the Mojave County level about their CDBG funding that comes out?
Yeah, they had one this year, and we were totally flabbergasted with just by the documentation that they were requiring. And we finally, we gracefully backed out, knowing that we could not meet their requirements. Because we were looking for, because they're wanting to build our pantry building. We have land that's been donated, but we didn't have a lot of the documentation that they needed. And at that time, we were totally unprepared, and that's when we had contacted, at that time, Christopher, and Christopher signed her up for a grant writing class.
Yeah, the grant writing class went way over my head because it didn't apply to us, because we're operating out of our home with 2 computers. So, you know,
Here she goes, put it in.
Oh, did you go to the USDA, to the Community Facilities Fund?
No, we didn't know we had that existed.
Okay, let me see if I can find the link for you.
Rural development.
okay, so there is some aspect
Okay,
to look into.
so using that, the plus on the
Yeah.
search thing.
Call
Thank
this number. The number is 602-280-8701. Ask who's in your region and how to reach them.
Okay,
Okay.
Because they do have money, and we're getting ready to start out a new federal fiscal year on October 1st. That means new money is coming into the state for this.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's about using Google and using it to find everything that you can't find if you don't have a database or something else.
Yeah.
And it takes a little time, but you find what I call nuggets of gold.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, you guys were great. Lily, thank you so much for facilitating this. I appreciate it.
She's not in the room with me.
Here, yeah.
Here's,
Here comes.
Here I am.
talking to you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, Lily.
Hey.
Thank you so much. I
Wonderful.
hope they have a good session.
Awesome. Yeah, of course. Did everyone enjoy it?
Yeah, absolutely, and we all want a copy of that.
Oh, yes, I have all the resources. She gave me a link to her Google Drive, which has her book, all the resources that she mentioned today. And then she is also, as you know, recording it, and I'll send that out to you guys as well.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Browning. We really appreciate you speaking with us at the network today.
Thanks. You
Yeah,
can
it is.
also email me when you're actually back trying to do something and you have a question or your difficulty. I'm going to give you my email address, and it sounds strange, but it's because I'm the author of some grant writing for dummy books. It is Dummies, DUMMIES, author, AUTHOR, the number 6, @gmail.com. Dummies with an S, author 6 @gmail.com. If you get it wrong, just Google my name, Dr. Bev Browning, and you'll be taken to my website. Everybody, pretty much my number is public, everybody has it, and also my email address. So you can email me if you're stuck on something, and I can either set up a quick Zoom or try to talk you through it on the phone if we need to do one-on-one besides just an email, okay?
Awesome, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. It was great. Enjoy your Saturdays. And can I ask where each person that's here, what food banks are you representing? Where are your food banks located?
We are located in southern Arizona, rural southern Arizona, in Arivaca, Pima County.
Yes, I've heard of Arabaca. As a matter of
Oh,
fact,
have you?
my dad used to winter here, and he would go driving all over the state, and he would go to every one of those places. Arivaca. Don't you have a community college located there?
No, we don't. We have a community center which provides programs for younger and seniors. And we have
I
a
may have
daycare
visited your
center.
community center. I may have visited your community center years ago and done a workshop, and I'm gonna think it was under 4-H.
Ah, yes, they did have a 4-H program. They're starting up a new one. Whoops.
Did somebody
But,
go?
No.
Lily got
Just a water bottle, not a big deal.
Well, someday you need to come and visit Southern Arizona again and come see Arivaca Human Resource. We're 33 years old and we serve meals to elderly, disabled, fragile incomes, do energy assistance and emergency funds.
Okay. Are you south of Kearney?
Are we what?
Southwest
Are you
of
south
Tucson.
Kearney?
About 75 miles southwest of Tucson, up by
Okay,
in the desert mountains.
Okay, good. I will let you know if I'm headed that way. I promise to start calling Lily and say, okay, what's the name of that food bank down there? And where's everybody else from?
We are from Douglas, Arizona, right on the border with Agua Prieta, Mexico, and we've been there for 25 years.
And are you getting a lot of grant money?
Last year we got maybe 2 or 3, and that was our second year working on them.
Okay, so with your location and the fact that you're gonna have a ton of demographics to support the need, you should be picking up close to $250,000 a year in grant awards.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know, work a little bit more on it. Yeah, well, we're all volunteers, so I just need to get a little bit more time, like you said, and start looking for more every month, you know,
Every
beyond,
day.
yeah, every day, yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you
Anyone
very
else?
much, it was very helpful.
We're the
Yeah,
ones from Yucca, yeah.
I probably look for grants 1 hour to 2 hours every single day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had our 501c3 since June of 2020, and we're operating out of a borrowed building and very, very small
Working space.
and staff. So we're just we're building a new building, and we're trying to get ourselves set.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of fundraisers and we've raised enough money to pay for the septic tank to go in, to get the site plan paid for. We've got enough to maybe do our concrete base, and we're looking for more money, so this grant writing information is.
We have a volunteer general contractor.
Yeah.
So
And it'll be constructed with volunteer labor.
How far are you from Bullhead City?
Oh, we're on the other side of the mountain from Bullhead. If you were a crow and you were flying over the mountain, we'd be almost direct across from them.
we're between Kingman and Lake Havasu.
At mile marker 25 on the I-40.
Okay, you should be looking into Las Vegas for potential grants as well, especially for those casinos that are present in the Laughlin area.
Yeah, we're pursuing some funding from the Laughlin casinos right now. They're not grants as much as they have,
Volunteer appreciation.
volunteer appreciation and, turkeys at Thanksgiving and stuff like that, so.
But we'll add that query in on our little search and see if any of the casinos have it, like startup funds.
Okay, so if you could get a gear, maybe from the County Economic Development Office, or maybe Arizona Department of Transportation, the region that serves your area, on traffic coming through that way on I-40, headed to Las Vegas as a likely destination, you have justification to talk about going to the owners and the corporations that all are on the Strip and in Henderson and every place else that give grant funding. If you can prove that people from your community and surrounding areas use an interstate highway in order to spend their hard-earned earnings across the state line with a destination of Laughlin or Nevada or Henderson, because now what you're doing is planting guilt, and you may just get a small check. It might be $5,000 or $10,000. It might not be the kind of check that you give to nonprofits.
We have a lot of going to London Bridge.
Well, not the casinos. A lot of our community members spend money over there, either with the shows or with the bingo or some of the spots. A lot of it's dinner and entertainment. So, yeah, good idea. I didn't even think about that.
So,
yeah.
Today, I'm going to end this, but here's what I want to tell you. There's money all around you in your communities. If you just look at who's coming through, where the people that live here go to when they want to buy something, what are they doing? There's a ton of money. And Douglas, you're positioned at a point where you should be a mega money magnet.
Wow.
I did not know that.
Now you know.
People are leaving Douglas.
Which is all the more reason to keep, yeah.
Well, and that's something you can put into the needs statement, that we're losing, Douglas is losing its property tax base because many people are leaving due to high crime, proximity to the border, and fewer opportunities for gainful employment. Okay. As a result of this, the food bank has lost its potential revenue base from any fundraiser that would be planned.
Okay, just quick question, a lot of the, like I told the ladies, a lot of the employment we have is Border Patrol, U.S. Customs, Port of Entry, and the prison. Is there any way that do you think they could provide grants for us?
No, they won't, but you have a crossing point right there in Douglas,
yes.
Correct? So who are the big trucking companies that are driving trucks right by you? Think about that. They're major mega corporations. You can do a count. You can probably talk to Border Patrol and say how many, what are the main brands of the most trucks that come through and cross the border bringing items from the United States into Mexico. Because now you can go to those corporations and talk about them using your truck stops, eating in your restaurants, but yet there's no payback to the community other than a small tip to a waitress.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's called guilt money.
I like that word, guilt money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, have a great day, everybody, especially driving back home. Please be safe, be careful. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Supervisor.